Well, good day there. We've got the first All Black squad named. Scott Robertson has named his squad for the first time today for 2024. And there is a lot to talk about. There is going to be a lot of disappointed people. I personally don't think they've got everything right. I hope I'm wrong. But there's a few areas I think that definitely will warrant a bit of conversation. I will talk about that shortly. But I think first, what we should talk about is quickly go through how the Super Rugby Grand Final went. Yes, that was on Saturday night in quite wet conditions. I was there. I am a Chiefs fan, so I was bitterly disappointed with the result. And I think after the Warriors' performance before that was a pretty average night, I must admit. However, the Blues, they were just awesome. They were easily the best team. And if I was just to talk about it at a high level kind of thing, the Chiefs, everything needed to go right for them like it did against the Hurricanes in Wellington, and it didn't quite come off. They did try a few things, but the bounce of the ball and a few of the things didn't go their way, and that was sort of the difference in the beginning. And then the Blues just kept going, and they were relentless. So, in summary, before we get into the detail, a very impressive performance by this Blues team. They are a completely different side to the last 21 years, you could say. I wouldn't say completely different, but certainly what I would say is that Leon McDonald was building something over the last sort of 2 years, and then Vern Connor's just taken them to another level. So, look, let's just quickly run through a few things. It was 5-1, the Blues winning convincingly. The Chiefs' try wasn't until the 66th minute. The Chiefs had the first chance to score. Damian McKenzie missed a penalty quite far out. I don't think he should have taken the shot personally. But anyway, that was, and then Damian McKenzie was able to kick a penalty at the 18th minute, but that was all she wrote for the first half for the Chiefs. And then the Blues, they scored 2 tries and kicked a couple of penalties. Harry Plummer kicked exceptionally well. We'll talk about the All Blacks team in a minute. I'll touch on that. But then, the Chiefs had a yellow card in the 51st minute. We'll talk about discipline as well. Caleb Clark scoring 3 tries, 1 in the first half and 2 in the second half. AJ Lamb putting the cherry on top in the 73rd minute to round out a very impressive win, 41-10. Wow, pretty incredible game. Let's go through some stats. It's worth exploring that. Obviously, the tries, that was very one-sided. Meters gained. I mean, the Blues 513, the Chiefs 256. Carries 153 to the Blues, 78 to the Chiefs. Defenders beaten, again, sort of reflects that position. Clean breaks was pretty even, 5-4. Passes pretty close. Offloads pretty close, 4-2. Turnovers conceded, 13-10. Nothing out of the ordinary. They were pretty even in a couple of those stats. Tackles, the Chiefs 215 to 82. They just were starved of possession. Missed tackles, 32 to the Chiefs, 17 to the Blues. I mean, I think we talk about 5 tries. It felt worse than that because of how dominant the display was by the Blues. But the Blues missed a few tackles and the Chiefs didn't really capitalise on that. Turnovers won 5-2. Nothing crazy, but man, there was a couple of really key turnovers and key moments that the Blues were able to do, to turn over the ball at key times. Kicks in play, I mean, the Blues kicked more, but I guess they had more ball. Penalty goals was even. Rucks, all similar in terms of possession, nothing different. Mauls won 8-0. I don't think the Chiefs even were able to form a maul. Line out strongly in favour of the Blues, but they lost 2 each. But I guess with the amount of ball that the Blues had, the percentage is probably in their favour in that sense too. Scrums was even. I did want to point that out compared to 3 weeks ago when the Chiefs played the Blues at Eden Park and got beaten comfortably then as well. But scrums were a lot more even this time. I don't know about the penalties or scrum infringements, but certainly scrums one was even, 7 apiece. Penalties conceded, probably one of the key stats here actually. 5 to the Blues, 12 to the Chiefs. The Chiefs' discipline has been their Achilles heel, probably for a little while, to be fair. There was one yellow card. Thankfully, it didn't come down to a card either way or the other, but certainly penalties was the issue. But territory and possession was strongly in favour of the Blues. I didn't catch that part, but just to finish there, I think the Blues had 74% territory and 66% possession. That is extremely one-sided, if I do say. And the weather, it wasn't a leveller, it wasn't an advantage to either team, but the Blues handled that very well. I would have thought that certainly the Chiefs like an open and expansive game. The Blues do too. There's no argument there. The Blues do as well. But the Chiefs weren't given that opportunity at all, and the Blues shut down the Chiefs. They shut. I don't know what I just said before, but the Chiefs weren't able to play the game, the style of the game they liked. Mainly not just because of the weather, but because the Blues also shut them down. Damian McKenzie was he tried everything. I don't think he left anything out there, but he didn't have the go forward that he needed to really spark with a bit of space. Sean Stevenson was largely shut down and didn't offer a heck of a lot. That was going to be a key partnership in terms of Sean Stevenson and Damian McKenzie. They weren't able to operate like they like to. There are obviously a couple of changes with Sean Stevenson didn't play last week. So anyway, but the Blues were almost perfect. Across the park, they dominated in every area. Special performances by some key men. Patrick Tuipulotu got man of the match. He totally deserved that, to come back from injury the way he did and get through 60 pretty key minutes. The Blues try coming up probably after he left the field. The Blues loose forwards, Akira Ioane played really well, got pretty much a standing ovation when he left the field, and Hoskins Satutu, was one of the better players this whole tournament. Harry Plummer, just perfect, led the game, directed the game, controlled the game, kicked extremely well in those conditions, specifically at goal. Perfetta, I think, just having that playmaking ability in the back as well. Caleb Clark, if he wasn't, we'll talk about the All Blacks in a minute, but if he wasn't going to be in the All Blacks, then that performance certainly sealed that. I think he's an pretty much all-round complete player, and I think maybe some of his deficiencies might have been under the high ball or the like, but certainly around the park, his work rate now has increased dramatically. To score 3 tries in a final like that, it's the Blues' first final win in 21 years. It's been a long time coming. Being at the game was just great because you got to see the Blues fans actually proud and happy and celebrating. Haven't seen that for a long time as well, which I've been okay about, but anyway, just a heck of a performance by the Blues. The Chiefs, just bouncing around here, I'm just winging it, but the Chiefs, they'll be disappointed in their performance. That certainly wasn't as good as last week, no matter. However you look at it, it wasn't as good as last week. Last week, everything needed to go right, and thankfully pretty much did. Of course, there was a couple of yellow cards, and it needed to happen again on Saturday night. Everything needed to go right for the Chiefs, and unfortunately it didn't. And the Blues capitalised and dominated and had their headspace in a better place. The Chiefs, you can't, a bit of travel, of course. Hooker was a big loss. Takiyaho, it was noticeable. I remember a few weeks ago when the Chiefs played the Blues, their scrum was, the Blues scrum dominated the Chiefs scrum, but Takiyaho came on off the bench later on and sort of, shored that up a little bit. he was a massive loss, and will potentially be a big loss to the All Blacks as well. And the Chiefs, last year, for the Chiefs, it's 2 finals in a row. Last year was really the one they needed to win. They capitulated because the referee was just going. The referee decisions were going against them, and they couldn't handle that very well. I'll put it that way. I could go on and on about that, but I'll put it that way. They didn't manage that situation very well, and Sam Cane got pretty frustrated and flustered, and the rest is history now. But that was the one. And then this weekend just gone, of course, the Chiefs had been doing well all season, but they had a bit of a slow, pretty low point there, and then they've bounced back the last few weeks, but it was just all too much for them. And the Blues, between the Blues and the Hurricanes, they were the 2 best teams this year, so the Blues managed to finish on top. I would say it was an enjoyable game, but I'd be lying. And that's not just being biased. I think that is... I say that because it was a pretty one-sided contest. There was no contest at all, really. I think maybe if there was a Chiefs try disallowed early, or there was a break that they didn't quite capitalise on, but there was an error. Maybe if one of that sort of moment came off, they might have got a bit of momentum, and it worked out the same as it did against the Hurricanes. But the Chiefs just did not. As I read through the stats, territory, possession, they didn't. They didn't compete. They just weren't there. Look, I would say that it's a pass mark for the Chiefs this year. I think that the Blues will be super proud of their performance, and they deserve deserve victory without a doubt. The Blues team could be quite a little bit different next year. There's certainly Akira Ioane leaving, and there might be a bit more, but we'll just have to wait and see. But anyway, massive for the region, massive for the Union, or for the Auckland region and those Auckland provinces, and massive for the Blues. Let's move on to probably the big talking point now that we know the result of the Super Rugby final. The All Blacks team was named. So as I said, Scott Robertson has named his first team. And yeah, look, it is just full of talking points. So 3 hookers, I guess they were always going to do that. Asofa Moore, Cody Taylor and George Bell. The reason George Bell got a chance is because Takiao is injured. However, he looks good. This kid, 22. He played really well for Canterbury, or for the Crusaders, sorry, and he showed a bit of speed to get around the field, so a bit of mobility there as well. And this Crusaders scrum has been pretty solid this year. He deserved a shot. Riccatelli will be disappointed, and I think a lot of fans of Riccatelli's and the Blues even this year will be a bit disappointed for him as well. I feel like he probably deserved to have a go, but you can have a spot here. But clearly the selectors have gone for the future. I don't really disagree with that one too much. But half decent talking point there. And then in terms of prop, relatively run-of-the-mill here. Ethan de Groot, Tyrell Lomax, Pasilio Tosi from the Hurricanes, Ofo Tongafasi. Of course, that was predicted. He's been probably the premier prop this Super Rugby competition, scoring a ton of tries as well. Tamaiti Williams too. I mean, he's got to be in the mix, doesn't he? Add to his 7 caps, young, big boy. So yeah, look, I don't have too many issues there. Let's be fair. I'm not the best place to comment on the fine arts of a front row forward. However, I think that was relatively predictable. Pasilio Tosi, maybe not. He comes in on debut, but the Hurricanes props have performed pretty well this year, it's fair to say. And between him and Tyrell Lomax, they have reasonably good representation. Locks, that is where the issues really pretty much solely lie. There's a few other tweaks in the backline, but locks is the biggest issue. And for only picking 3, for me, that's madness. But I don't know what the rules are in terms of, okay, we've got 32, but if there's injury, we can bring someone in, or however that works. Reality is they can, I'm sure. But I would have had 4. You want to have 4 in the mix. And the other big reason I'd have 4 is or really the main reason I'd have 4 in particular, is because Scott Barrett's been injured for a fair chunk of this season. By the way, he is captain. Congratulations. That is, I would say, a bit of a no-brainer, to be fair. I mean, there was a couple of other options. I liked it. He's playing in New Zealand. He can he's got better access, say, to players or whatever than Ardie Savea. I think Ardie Savea as vice captain's great, but certainly Scott Barrett. Oh, they're the same age. They're the same age, so you can't say that's future planning or whatever, can you? But anyway, so Scott Barrett's got it. I don't mind that. I hope that, because there's been a bit of talk about Scott Barrett's discipline and all the rest of it, yellow cards, red cards, and the like. Well, hopefully this, I know that he probably still had the odd yellow and red card for the Crusaders as captain, but hopefully this helps him with his discipline or determination to be a little bit more disciplined. To be fair to him, he's just so physical and into everything that sometimes it slips up. So anyway, Scott Barrett's one of the locks, no-brainer, and he's captain. I don't mind that whatsoever. Tupu Vai is also one of the locks, and Patrick Tuipulotu. So I think that was relatively predictable too, but I think you'd have to have a fourth, and maybe there was an injury or two floating around. I know Josh Lord's been injured. But that was the other reason I'd have a fourth lock, is because Patrick Tuipulotu only just came back from injury on the weekend, and I don't know how fit he is. They wouldn't have picked him otherwise, but you know what I mean. Like he's been under an injury cloud, even coming into last week's game. Of course, he performed admirably, and if he is fit, he would have been that other lock. So anyway, I think they should have had someone else. I think there's a few locks floating around. Leo Wary in the Hurricanes could have been in the mix too. I think the Chiefs offered another lock as well, and there's certainly some good young up and coming, potential bolters. The young fella from the Crusaders, and there's a young guy floating around in the Blues locking ranks that they'll probably make it eventually anyway. But I would have had another one. Anyway, loose forwards: Ethan Blackladder, Simapeni Finau, Luke Jacobson, Dalton Papali'i, Ardie Savea, and Wallace Setiti. Wow, I mean, quite a few talking points there. Ethan Blackladder, given for me. He is one hell of a player and can cover multiple roles. Simapeni Finau, he has had the solitary test cap, but he was injured a fair bit this year, but I think you'd have to have him. He offers such a physical presence and is out and out number 6. Luke Jacobson, he's been around for a while now. He's got some good experience, not always in the only 18 caps, but he's been around the All Black mix for a number of years. He's a leader, and he can play multiple roles. Dalton Papali'i, I think he's probably our number 7, although I don't mind Ardie Savea there, depending on how they get the rest of the mix. And then, of course, Wallace Setiti as the absolute bolter. Boy, has he had a hell of a year. I really like that selection. Not just being a Chiefs fan, I need to put that caveat there, but 21, playing the way he has this year, he is the future. Get him in the mix, make that happen, and they have, and it's a big call, but he's only going to be better for it. And to have him in there with the likes of Ardie Savea and some of the other guys, where he could go, that kid was probably the Chiefs' best player on the weekend. So even in a situation like that, he's still putting his hand up, still stepping up, and still dominating, performing exceptionally well against a really, really class Blues side. So the players that do miss out, Yosei from the Hurricanes, he should feel pretty disappointed. I think he fits into one of those categories where he could be one of the best players not to play for the All Blacks. If you ask me, he has had a great season, but I feel like Setiti would have got the edge just for me, just because of from a future point of view. I think you've got enough experience floating around in the squad to cover the rest of that. And then, of course, Hoskins Sotutu. I don't know how they could have left him out, but they did. They found a way. Hoskins Sotutu, one of the best players in the competition this year, and I would say he was the best 8. So they have made a conscious decision, and that might have been even before this season, to be fair. I know that I think Hoskin Satutu missed out on the All Blacks last year, which was a big call as well, but he went away and he addressed that and he played absolutely awesome this year. So I do feel sorry for him, but at the same time, what do you do? Can't take everyone. And then Akira Ioane, he missed out, but I think that writing was on the cards there when he decided he wasn't going to be at the Blues next year. He's going overseas, so that was relatively predictable. Yeah, look, I feel pretty good about that. I feel like maybe we're a little light on 7. I mean, if you know, Dalton Papali'i, he's probably, I don't know, depends what they do with Adi Savia in number 8. And so I don't know. The makeup, the options that they do have is pretty solid, pretty sound. But I think relatively on a whole, that's pretty good group of loose forwards. Halfbacks: Finlay Christie, TJ Perenara, and Cortez Ratama. Yeah, look, I mean, without Cam Roigard, what do you do? You know, these guys were the best floating around. I think the only omission there would have been Fakatawa from the Highlanders, and you could argue that he's got some experience, not as much as Perenara, not as much as probably Finlay Christie, but Fakatawa's had a pretty good year and a team that has struggled for most of that. But Cortez Ratama, for me, had to be in there. He would have been probably the one to miss out if Cam Roigard was there. But Cortez Ratama, it depends on where they go with number 10. But Damien McKenzie, that would be a good pairing, and I like pairings. However, I would like to see Finlay Christie work with Damien McKenzie, because Finlay Christie's got to be the quickest at getting the ball to the first 5 in New Zealand. And Damien McKenzie's got to have quick ball. Same with Beauden Barrett. And Beauden Barrett's played with Finlay Christie a little bit too. And we're talking about England, aren't we, right? That's going to be the first test. So the reality is the English line speed on defence is going to be quick. They're going to do everything they can to shut our playmakers down. So we've got to get the ball out to our fly half or first 5 as quickly as possible. We've got to give Beauden Barrett and Damien McKenzie as much time. I mean, Richie Mo'unga could handle line speed from defences much better, but these guys do like their space. So anyway, you have to do that. Perenara has played out of his skin this season. He's got to be there. His experience, and he's been one of the one of the best halfbacks this year easily. So it was really a no-brainer, and kind of in hindsight a really lucky or fortuitous thing that Perenara is available at the moment. So Beauden Barrett and Damien McKenzie have been named as the first 5/8, which means Stephen Perifetta has been named as an outside back based on the All Blacks website. Harry Plummer will be a little bit disappointed. I think he's a better goal kicker than, or certainly goal kicked really well this season, but possibly a better goal kicker than both these guys. In terms of Barrett and McKenzie, although Geordie Barrett's likely to be the goal kicker anyway, and he's pretty sharp. Nothing wrong there. So whoever we pick as a starting 10 against England will be very important, and it depends on the whole style of game and the game plan. If Beauden Barrett and Damien McKenzie are reasonably similar, but Barrett certainly got that experience. But Damien McKenzie's going to play a fast and expansive game, and if our forwards can dominate enough to allow that and give them a bit of space, then look out. But yes, I'm not sure which way they'll go in terms of starting lineup, but in terms of first 5/8 in the squad, that's pretty predictable. Harry Plummer can cover the midfield too, which is possibly why he could have been a good option. Anyway, so moving into the midfielders, we've got Geordie Barrett, Rieko Ioane, Anton Leonard-Brown, and Billy Proctor. Billy Proctor getting his first chance at joining the All Blacks squad, and definitely deserves it. He's only 25. He's been around feels like he's been around for quite a while, but he's been one of the best midfielders, if not the best. I mean, Geordie Barrett has been absolute class. It's hard to pick a better player than him this year, to be honest. And if I was to pick the best player in Super Rugby this year, it might just be him. So anyway, and Geordie Barrett's vice captain. He's 27 now. Feels like I can remember when he came in as a teenager. But 57 tests now. He's going to be the goal kicker, and he's it's a no-brainer there. Rieko Ioane as well, no-brainer. 67 tests at 27 years of age, very impressive. Anton Linnett-Brown, for me, easy, no question. He's been a class player all year, played pretty well in the final to a certain degree in a team that got completely dominated, and certainly played pretty well against the Hurricanes the week before. Plays inside centre and outside centre, or second 5'8" in centre. Billy Proctor, no dramas there. Outside backs, Caleb Clark, Imani Narawa, Stephen Perifeta, Sevu Reece and Mark Talia. Yeah, so I guess Stephen Perifeta instead of Harry Plummer, but they've gone for an outside back in that sense. Caleb Clark, for me, he's played his way into the team. He might not have been there at the start of the season. He might not have even been there last week, but certainly the weekend, that just changed a lot of things. Imani Narawa, he's been, a bit hampered by a little bit of an injury, injuries this year. But when he's on, he is absolutely class, and I think can cover fullback too at a push, as we've seen in the Super Rugby this year. But I think just covers everything all the skill set you need as a winger. It covers them off pretty well. Stephen Perifeta, goal kicker, fullback that can play first five, no issues with that. I think at the start of the year, or certainly midway before he got injured, you would have said, he's absolutely no-brainer. So I think they've probably just stuck with that. It's taken him a couple of games to get back into a bit of form since his injury, but I don't mind that at all. He's been in the test side previously as well. He's played 3 tests. Sevu Reece, he was the only good player in the Crusaders, you could argue, but certainly he's been one of the best wingers this year, and Mark Talia, if not the best winger. So, without Will Jordan, that is pretty much what you do, I don't have too many issues with that. Fullbacks were a little bit light there. So what are we saying here? We've got Caleb Clark, Imani Narawa, Sevu Reece and Mark Talia. That's 4 wingers. You probably should have dropped a winger and either taken a fullback or certainly a lock, right? But I feel like we're a little bit light on fullback, but I guess between Geordie Barrett and Beauden Barrett, they can cover fullback pretty well. Freaking Damien McKenzie can play fullback pretty damn well as well. I forgot to mention in the loose forwards there that Sam Cane was unavailable due to injury, is what the All Blacks website said. We knew he wasn't going to be captain. I would love to have seen him in there, if not just purely for a mentorship type role and being able to influence some of the young guys. Imagine if Lakai was in there in the squad working with Ardie Savia and Sam Cane. Maybe that's why Luke Jacobson got in, to be fair. I feel like Luke Jacobson could have been on the fridge. I think at the start of the season, Luke Jacobson would have got in, but boy, has things changed throughout the season. But Hoskins Satutu should still feel disappointed, and look, Lakai will be in the mix at some stage. He's so they've got ultimately, I don't know. Anyway, Lakai will get there. It's still a pretty good squad. It's still a pretty good All Blacks team. I know it's going to be there's going to be a lot of change. There's been quite a few changes since last year, with the likes of Sam Whitelock, Brodie Retallick. Certainly in that locking area, Sam Cane and a handful of others, Aaron Smith, Richie Mo'unga. So definitely quite a number of changes in the squad, and it's going to be very interesting to see. It's the first year back from a World Cup. You're always going to see quite a few changes, and it's always a bit nerve-wracking because you don't know what you're going to get, really. We've got a new coach this time, and you got to remember that Scott Robertson is the first. This is the first time since Graham Henry that we haven't had that same succession. So Graham Henry coached for the 2 to 4 years before the 2007 World Cup. We had the worst All Blacks result and performance at a World Cup ever, going out in the quarterfinals, and then he managed to keep his job, which was pretty impressive. Read his book, read Richie McCaw's book. There's some interesting experiences that those men had. But I think he was best placed to sort of then come back and have another go to learn from those mistakes. And of course, 2011 we won. So Graham Henry, 2 to 4 years before 2007. Then Steve Hansen took over after 2011, and then Ian Foster took over after 2015, right through to 2019 and 2023. Sorry. So yeah, look, it's the first time that cycle and that succession planning has stopped. So it's basically a complete refresh. Assistant coaches, look, Scott Robertson might have used some of those, and I didn't get into that level of detail. But the reality is, he's brought in some new coaches like Leon McDonald and the like, and he's going to put his flavour on it. Like the whole style, the game plan, structure, everything is going to be a bit different. Scott Robertson has a hell of a good record with Crusaders, and he's been, I guess, coached a lot of good teams, but he's coached a lot of different teams and had success with all of them. This will be a little bit different, but if you were then to look at it from an England point of view, you would look at this first test and go, okay, well, the first test of every All Blacks year is when they're most vulnerable, especially with all the changes that the All Blacks have had since last year. England looked really good against Japan on the weekend. They'll be pretty fired up. They don't come this way very often. I'm excited about it. It's only a 2-game series. This one really shapes up to be one that you wish it was 3. It could be 1 by the end of it, and that's definitely not what anyone wants to see. Although England would take that as its success. First game is up against the All Blacks in Dunedin, under the roof, and then the second game is at Eden Park, where we all know that the All Blacks have a very good record, that they will pretty much do whatever they can to maintain that record. I'll be at the game at Eden Park, really looking forward to that. There's no warm-ups for the All Blacks this time. Normally there might be a hit out against one of the Pacific Island nations. I think we're straight into it this time round. So it is a reasonably exciting time. I think we're all ready for a test match, aren't we? For an All Blacks test. So anyway, that's it for me. Hopefully you agree with some of the things I've said. Happy to hear your thoughts if you don't. But yeah, there's a few decisions that make me a little bit nervous. But I am wrong a lot of the time, and hopefully I'm wrong again this time. But awesome. If you've listened, thank you so much. Leave a comment, leave a like, whatever you want to do. I just want to hear if I'm on the right track. Awesome. Thanks.